Hi, it's James, and this is part 3 of my tutorial series on the Autco Medicom system. And today's subject is all about intercom and public address. So, to make your console able to call inside each room or make public address, you need to first understand the wiring. So let's say that you have one room and you have a presence call, a emergency call, a bed call, and a bathroom call. For one room, you should only use one uh, intercom because using one intercom is enough to cover the whole room. But you have to decide on which call point you're going to connect the intercom. So you have the choice between connecting it to, let's say, the presence, the patient call, the emergency, or the bathroom. Usually it would make a lot of sense to connect it next to the patient call because that's where it's closest to the patient, to the bed. But it all depends on your room configuration. So let's say, for example, that your room, your intercom is connected to the patient call, and you go into your call table, and let's say that we have one room that has those kind of calls, and I've programmed it. Let's say it's room 101 here. This here is a nurse presence, and then you have a emergency for 101, and then you have a alarm call, which is the patient call 101, and then you have the bathroom. The bathroom call 101. So as you can see, the 4 inputs are all for room 101, and you know that you've connected your intercom to this patient call, and that's where the talk point is going to be. So this is input number 3. You can see it here, C01, which means node 1, 003, which means the input 3. The talk point should be on input 3 because that's where you have the intercom physically installed. And it also means that for the nurse presence, you're also going to use talk point 3. And for the same room on the emergency, it's going to be talk point 3. And for the bathroom, usually you don't have a talk point for the bathroom, but let's say that they also want a talk point for the bathroom, then you also put it on number 3. And as you can see here, they're all on number 3. The reason why it's on number 3 is that the intercom is physically connected to this call point, which is the bed call. Now, after you've programmed the talk point, the next thing to do is to make it available for the intercom to call for. And to do that, we go into Output, Audio, and Member List. And by default, you have all those groups already created for you. And because we selected the template with 14 consoles, it goes all the way to 14. For each console, you have a M intercom and then the node number, and then you have MPA and then the node number. So for the console to room call one-on-one, you're going to select here, and you have to remember which call point has the physical intercom connected. So let's create a few more just to make the example a little bit clearer. Let's say that here we have room 102, and I don't know yet what talk point this should be, so I'm going to skip this for now. And you have emergency, room 102, and you have the patient call 102, and you know that once again in 102 the intercom is connected to talk point to the patient call, which is talk point number 7. So this here is the correct number. Number 7 is here. And you have the bathroom 102, and now we know that it should be number 7 for room 102. And we go back to the nurse presence, we put it on number 7. We go to emergency, we do the same. And as you can see here, the first 4, which represent room 101, is going to be on talk point number 3. And for the room number 2, it's going to be on talk point number 7. So we go back to audio output, audio member list, in M intercom, and then the node number, which is 1 in our example. We will select 3 and 7, which are both patient calls. And those patient calls, the reason why we select those two is because the intercom is physically connected to those two input, which is why we select these two. And after we have that, it will handle the intercom. So from the console, you will be able to dial, for example, 101 or 102, and you will be able to talk to the person in those rooms. Next is the public address. For the public address, we have to go into call group, and by default there are 14 groups already created, 14 for the number of consoles. So you have to create a new group. So you go into 1. This is my convention here, but I always call them group G-PA for public address, dash the node number. The name here is going to be what's going to be displayed once it's selected. So if it's a French site, you'd have to call it Appel Général, because that's going to be displayed. If it's an English site, you're going to call it public address. But since we have a French site, we're going to call this. And you remember which output the physical intercom are connected to. It's 3 and 7. Obviously, if you have more rooms, then you'd have more to select here. But remember that in our example, you have 3 and 7, which are the call points that are physically connected to the intercom. And you should select those. Basically, it's the same call points we chose for the member list for intercom here. So after we create the group public address 1, we go back into output audio member list, and we choose the second one here, M-PA-1, which is the node number. We double click on this area, and on this side we choose our newly created group, which is G-PA-1, and that's the only thing we select. Press OK. and with that, people at the console are going to be able to press that special red button, and it's going to have the option called Appel Général, and they're going to be able to use that to make a public address.